If you grew up anywhere near Lake Erie, you've probably heard it at least once. Something big lives out there. It's not a shark, it's not a submarine, just something. And depending on who you ask, it's been swimming around for over a few hundred years. I remember hearing about it as a kid, and pretending I wasn't thinking about it every time I went near the water. Hey, I got a new one for you. Ever hear about Bessie, the Lake Erie Monster?
The hockey team?
Hi, I'm Ed.
I'm Miguel.
And this is Carl, our podcast witness. And welcome to The Neighborly Unknown, the show where we discuss the unknown in a neighborly way. Won't you be our neighbor? Bessie, as the creature has come to be known since the 1980s, following a local naming contest, has reportedly been seen in Lake Erie since at least 1793, a long time ago. When the first recorded account described a large serpent-like figure in the water, sightings have occurred across various parts of the lake. The majority of modern reports tend to cluster around the western part of Ohio, the western shoreline of Lake Erie, particularly around Sandusky or the Port Clinton area. Also the Lake Erie Islands, if you're familiar with the Sandusky area. Probably been out to Cedar Point or made your way towards Chicago on the turnpike out there, but that's where it is.
The world's largest geode that you can go into. That's put in bay.
Yeah, I've actually been to that. It's pretty cool out there. Yeah, Kelly's Island and stuff. Yep. We rode our bikes around there. It's very beautiful out there.
They used to have like a big General Motors plant out there in Sandusky.
Oh, yeah. Big General Motors.
Like abandoned.
Yep, it is.
It's also where Callahan brake parts are manufactured.
Oh, from
Tommy Boy.
Tommy Boy, yes, you're right. The fictional, yes, you're right. So we all know the area, right? This creature, Bessie, as it is known, is generally not described as being very aggressive or violent towards people. And most of the accounts have observed it kind of from a distance, right? They're not really like up close and personal. Most of them. We'll get to that in a bit. It usually surfaces pretty briefly before it submerges again, so it only comes up for a short period of time. The length of it, right? This is very important. It changes a lot, right? Most estimates are around 30 to 50 feet, but they can go even less than that. Some around like 16 feet, and some people say it's like 60 feet long. But we know how it can be, even if you're not someone on the boat all the time. It's hard to judge things, especially if something's submerged. But 30 to 50 feet is pretty much where it comes in at. So, big, huge creature in the water.
Well, yeah, without weighing them or actually measuring, I don't think you're going to be getting a good estimate.
No, and you're freaked out, right? If you see this creature or this monster in the water, you ain't trying to figure out how long it is. But I think a lot of what these folks have figured out is they were judging it based off of the length of their boats. And a lot of these people who've seen this thing live on the shoreline, so they're lake folk. You know, they understand how big things can be, but it's still kind of hard to judge, right? Now the head descriptions of this thing, because it has popped up, right? The head comes up, and it'll show itself. Some people will say it looks like a dog-like head.
Is it a dog?
It is a giant dog. It could be, we don't know. Yeah. But most of the accounts are like it's like a giant snake, right? Or a giant serpent type head. Very large eyes, which they've seen. And some witnesses even have seen some sort of like fins or maybe like flippers or arms. Very creepy, right? Appendages, as they would say.
Yeah.
But throughout the decades, the sightings, most of the accounts have actually remained pretty close, right? People haven't changed how they've described this thing significantly from the first known sighting, which has been in the 1790s, to most recently, which is in the late 2020s, so people have seen this thing and they've described it very similarly almost every single time. It's very close.
Is there any visual proof?
That's a good question. There was a recording that I could not find from someone very recently in the 90s, but I couldn't locate the finding, or couldn't locate the video of the creature, unfortunately. But it was analyzed, I suppose, by a lot of people, a lot of experts, and the big phrase is inconclusive, right?
Okay.
Evidence.
Maybe someone tried to delete it.
Maybe, yeah, maybe, yeah, right. I know. A whole conspiracy theory probably around there. So that's just a little primer. This is what we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Bessie, Lake Erie Monster, big, 30 to 50 feet. Big head, all different kinds of colors, right? Could be silvery, could be coppery color, gray, muddy brown. That could also depend on, the light of the lake and the time of day. Lake Erie can be very murky. It's not necessarily the most clear lake if you've ever been around here before. And it's been seen by all different types of people, families, workers, fishermen, boat crew, all sorts of folks have reported this thing. And the Sandusky area, or what they would call the South Bay area.
Well, I mean, to contest that 1790s one, it's like two guys at the head of the Cuyahoga River there, is that, we don't know what they were doing. 1790s. How are you going to be able to trust their account?
Right.
So, I mean, the funny thing about the Lake Erie Monster is that the first official account, which I'm sure you're going to be going into here in a second, but first official account is going to be 1817. That's going to be right after the War of 1812 ended. In fact, the Battle of Lake Erie ended.
What was the War of 1812?
War of 1812 was more of kind of that battle of American independence.
Oh, yeah.
It's also, there's also an interstate war that happens after that over Toledo area. But we're not going to talk about that today. So,
but Lake Erie was very important in the War of 1812.
I know.
Right?
I know. Ohio. I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but Ohio City was at war with Cleveland, and that's
yes.
probably a whole nother podcast. But there are all these wars in Northeast Ohio. I feel like that happened probably around that time.
Oh yeah, and the Battle of Lake Erie in itself was 1813. So, like, right there was, you had naval battles on this inland sea, which we've come to call one of the Great Lakes. And if you've ever been to Lake Erie, it is very much an inland sea. This is the time that our shipping traffic increased. We started our trade routes across Lake Erie to Canada, to Buffalo, to Cleveland. I mean, the rail line was just being built in there.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think it's important to know for people who are not from this area is all the lakes are connected, right?
Yes.
It's a huge, huge shipping route. And that's why all these cities started to pop up in towns, and communities were all along these routes and all along the lake. So a lot of population started to kind of fill in these areas around this time. So good points.
And this is right where the frontier settlements were going to be. I mean, that's what humans do. We go to water. I mean, it's one of our sources for life. So, this is another big thing about this time, was that the newspapers were starting to gain influence. And so in 1817, Lake Erie wasn't some kind of quiet inland sea, like thinking it was just all peaceful and all the trees went up to the water line and everything else like that. No, I mean, you've got some shipwrecks probably still coming in on the surf.
Oh, yeah.
You've got all kinds of things happening there. The War of 1812, like we said, had just ended. Shipping traffic was increased. Frontier settlements were pushing outward. Newspapers were expanding their reach. This region was in transition. It wasn't wilderness. It wasn't fully settled either. It was somewhere in between. Long before the American settlers arrived, indigenous nations also had lived along these shores for generations. The lake wasn't new, but people interpreting it were.
Right. Yeah, you make a good point. So the natives that were in this area, right? They probably had their own traditions about the lake and their own kind of mythology, if you will, or stories about the lake. Would you say that's fair?
Oh, that's very fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like we touched a little bit on last time, is these stories are definitely shaped by the storytellers.
Yeah.
I mean, Europeans had water threats. You're bringing in a lot of different stories of water creatures. You've got like one of the most famous one is like Jenny Greenteeth. You've got the Loch Ness Monster. You've got kind of all of these kind of serpents and different things, especially those who came over and the earliest settlers. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that people warned them away from. The Great Lakes indigenous traditions also had powerful water beings, which is, I think, kind of odd that you mentioned the dog face.
Yeah.
Because one of the indigenous stories of these spirits, these guardian spirits of the water, not just serpents, but panthers.
Oh, really?
Yes, they're underwater panthers.
Oh, cool.
And so, like, it's funny that you should bring up like kind of a dog face, because a panther kind of is kind of the wider cat face, and so could maybe look like a dog depending on the breed.
Sure.
But
right. Interesting.
But Europe had its water threats: the spirits, the drowned travelers, serpents that terrorize sailors. The Great Lakes indigenous traditions speak of powerful water beings that were tied to storms. Let me balance.
Let's talk about that a little bit here. You mentioned that they were talking about storms and balance, right? And so Lake Erie, as far as I know, is growing up here, is because of how shallow it is. The storms are just like unbelievably intense here.
Yep.
Which, I was starting to think about this. It's like, wow, why don't some of the other Great Lakes have these stories? And if they started from indigenous folk thinking about how there's storms and balance with the lake, it makes sense, because Lake Erie has tremendously terrible storms, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they pick up almost immediately, like out of nowhere. So that's interesting.
When you say indigenous people, is that like Native Americans?
Yep.
Gotcha. And they have reports of like the sea monster as well?
It's not really a sea monster. It's not anything physical. It's more spirits that inhabit the waters.
But it could be the same thing. They just refer to it in a different way.
Yes, it's more that for indigenous people, kind of seeing more like the spirit of something. It's like the spirit of the eagle or spirit of the forest, and that's what we went over last month. Was Grassman was that there were stories here of forest guardians who would protect the forest in case there was ever like some sort of imbalance that had to be corrected. So that would be the same thing for the water spirits.
That could be the origin story, these things,
But I think that the Europeans kind of their mindset of things is going to be a little bit more physical. Sure. Like they want like the serpent, something that can be conquered, something that can be overcome. Whereas the indigenous people, they don't see it as something to be overcome. They see it as a spirit, part of nature, something to be in balance with, to be harmonized with.
Really interesting.
And as we were talking about the 1800s, newspapers across the U.S., North America, I should say, because it wasn't really the U.S. yet. North America were obsessed with giant serpents, from Lake Champlain to coastal sea monsters. Bessie didn't arrive in a vacuum. Stories are shaped by the teller, and they're shaped by the culture they land in. Lake Erie Monster appears in a century obsessed with giant serpents.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they've been around for a long time, right? And it's not new to just say that, oh, I saw a serpent in the water.
Was there like any suspicion that this was like just a way for the newspaper to like sell? Like they were just like whipping up stories to try to sell newspapers, or did people? Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The timing seems like a little too convenient.
And we'll definitely get there. But that's very much the case. Is that you have these moments where the newspapers are going to sensationalize in order to get readers to sell papers. I mean, that's their industry. I mean, granted, now it's different that, with our current state of being, we're in a kind of a media blitz, and it's trying to tailor it down to every single person. We don't want to be like overwhelmed by all the news that's happening and all the news that's available to us now. There it was like people needed more. They had no idea what's going on. Like, hey, I saw something weird in the water. I want to, like, maybe it's in the newspaper. So in 1817, Ohio wasn't a flyover state. It was new. It was expanding, raw. And a monster adds mythic scale. So it's going to bring people to Ohio, right? So, yeah, I kind of feel like that's going to be a little bit of that sensationalism too. So
Yeah. Ohio at that time was kind of a border wilderness state, right? To expand out west. It's like it was coming into its own at that time, but still not totally, populated by Europeans at that point. Still frontier. A lot of frontier, especially along the lake. So that's good. That's good. We've got some good stories here, right? So we talked a little bit about what Bessie is, and we've talked a little bit about the mythology that may be associated with it, right? But there's real accounts. There's true stories that people have told. And we picked a few for you, or I picked a few for you, some good ones, right? So you mentioned the 1817-ish time period. A lot of sightings around that year, right? Numerous sightings. So we're not going to talk about the original 1790 story because that guy might have been drinking a little bit by himself. He might not be wrong, but the story has some holes. So one of my favorite ones were these two French brothers. You kind of alluded to this, right? The Dussault brothers. They have a unique perspective on this story because they saw this serpent creature differently than anybody else has ever reported seeing it, right? They stumbled upon it on the beach. Right? It was basically on the beach, as they report it, when they were just kind of walking around, and it was kind of near the Toledo area, and it was writhing in pain, right? Thrashing and tormenting on the beach. They thought it was kind of dying, right? This giant creature. This is where the report comes from, where they say it kind of had arms or appendages, like arms, and I don't know if they said hands, but arms. And of course they report that because no one really has seen the whole body of it except for these two. And I mean, since then, no one has really reported that. And they see this thing, right? And they freak out, right? They lose their minds. So they just like run away, and they're like, oh my God, we got to tell somebody, because you have to tell someone, otherwise no one's going to believe you. And so they go and they try to find some people, and by the time they come back, it's totally gone, right? The creature's just like disappeared. Kind of like in those movies where you're just like, I saw something, and then you come back and they're like, well, where is it? But it wasn't a total loss, because they had seen some scales, some big scales that were left. It didn't seem to match anything from the lake at the time. These were kind of like silvery, shiny scales that kind of were in the general vicinity of where they were. So they remembered where they went.
Did they like collect the scales?
Yeah, I think I don't know if they saved them or they sold them.
They got them.
Yeah, they had them. Yeah, who knows? We should track down these brothers from the 1817. Maybe we'll put you on the case.
I guess back then they didn't have cameras. Right?
No,
they could just take a
they didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even know if they would have believed the footage if they had that. But they did say 20 to 30 feet, right? This is where the description starts to get real for folks. Long arms, like we talked about, and that story kind of transitioned into other stories, right? So that year there were multiple sightings. Crews seen, like entire crews of people, ships, beachgoers. They've seen this thing, and it's like the same year. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this was a one-off story that year. So fast forward a little bit, right? There's been a bunch of sightings between the first sighting and the 1980s, but the 1980s is when this really kicks into gear, right? 1980s in Cleveland.
So that's like 100 years later.
Yep.
Yeah, 100 years later, but there were sightings in between now, right? But not like crazy sightings, right? Not just people saying, "Oh yeah, I saw it and it was there" and stuff like that.
Well, when the 1980s, then too, you're getting more and more people with cameras. You're getting more and more people with video cameras, and so
yeah.
I mean that's one of
when,
the things.
Video cameras became a thing.
Exactly,
like more of a consumer item that
yep.
people have. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
And so, kind of funny because that's when a lot of our things for last time with the Grassman came up. Yep. Is that 1970s, 1980s when people with cameras capture these things, or they have these reports, and it's maybe just that resurgence of folklore is that maybe now we can capture it.
Yeah. Someone will believe me.
Right.
Yeah, if I get it. No, you're absolutely right. I totally agree.
Did UFIs, like, sightings go up in the 1980s as well? I'm assuming they probably did, because people could, like, try to film it. I don't know. It's a similar thing.
It is a similar thing, and that might be a survey thing that I might have to look into.
Yeah,
that's some data points that I know Kathy would love to see. But
this time though, it because of all these sightings, it really started kind of like a resurgence of Bessie, right? It wasn't so much of a I kind of saw it. It was more of a let's really embrace this creature of the water for us, right? So there was a big flurry of sightings, right, that happened, and a local newspaper out there in the Port Clinton area actually presented a naming contest talking about maybe sensationalizing this, and they threw it out there, and this is where the name Bessie came from, right? Is that people voted on the name Bessie because it was related to a power plant out in that area, so they figured, well, Bessie's a good name, and it kind of plays a little bit off of the Nessie, right? Mm-hmm. Too. So there's a little bit of a showmanship there with Bessie, right? But we're in this period now, and people are seeing it a lot. There's a hotline that exists for a local news person out there who basically sets up this phone message system, and people just start calling in and saying, hey, I saw this thing, I was doing this and doing that, which I'll talk about here in just a second. But the name is really important, right? Because it's not some like creature that feels like it's going to attack you, right? Bessie's a very nice and kind, kind of playful name, right? You might name your dog Bessie, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not something that invokes fear. It kind of invokes more pride, and they branded it, right? Mm-hmm. This name, and the reason why this story is important is because it kind of turns away from this, oh my gosh, this thing might kill me in the water in my boat, to more of a, oh yeah, Bessie, I know Bessie. And so we get to this story of this individual who I really like.
But before we do,
okay, I
just have to say, like, even with this one and with the Grassman, that Ohio always has to have something their own. You notice that?
Absolutely. I mean, It's Ohio against the world. You've heard the phrase, right? We have our own thing. We don't have Bigfoot. We're not California. We've got the Grassman. We don't even have Nessie. We've got Bessie. Bessie, right?
Exactly.
But it's ours.
She's ours.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, we have to put our stamp, even if it's a couple notches below some of the big shooters, the big guns in the cryptology world, but we're still on the board, right? We placed, but that's a good point, right? And I mean, Ohio is we're kind of like that, and then we embrace it, right? And it's the same with the Grassman. It's kind of like, let's not go out and find this thing and string it up or whatever. Although there is a contest for finding Bessie, it's more of a playful thing. It's not dead or alive. It's alive. They want to find it. So you're right. And we stay in the 80s, right? There's more modern stories, but I like this individual, Mary Landau, in 1983. And the reason why I like this lady so much is because it's her home. She's not on a boat. As far as I know, she wasn't at the time inebriated, right? She was kind of just walking outside on her front porch, and she sees something in the water, right? Of course. And at first she says, to herself, it looks like a capsized boat, no big deal. But then it kind of starts moving around. It starts what she calls playing, like a creature of the water, just playing around or wrestling around. She sticks with the size. 40 to 50 feet is kind of how she describes it. It's pretty close. Now, she lives on the water, right? So I think that she's probably seen enough boats to know what, how big a 40 to 50 foot thing in the water would look like. So I trust her. Long neck, big eyes visible on the side of its head. And she calls this in, right? She basically calls this into that little hotline that I suggested before, and just casually just says, yeah, I saw this thing. Just describes it exactly how it was. She says she walked out on her front porch. It was there. It was playing around for a few minutes and then just submerged, never seen again. Right from her front porch. She wasn't on a boat. She wasn't in the middle of the lake, nothing like that. And I like this story, right? I like this story because it's not just in the middle, right, of the lake. It comes close to shorelines, right? Probably because that's where a lot of food is. Oh, yeah. It can find a lot of different things along the shoreline, and it's lake, right? It can go wherever it wants to go, but it's in the same area, right? Same general vicinity as the Dussault brothers from the 1817 story, right? So it stays true to where we're at here with this stuff. Got any questions on Mary, her story?
Well, yeah. What was her background? Do we know?
She's just a local resident. Lived there for a long period of time. I don't really know like her whole life story or anything like that. No, I was just curious. But I did look her up, and I believe that she, if it's the same person, because I wanted to see if she had like an interview. Yeah. I think she passed away a while back, unfortunately. But these folks, when they call in these things, she gave them their name and everything. These folks, it's just like grass, man. Yeah, I saw it. Don't bother me. Don't call me a kooky. Yeah. I'm telling you what I saw.
That you can like believe when it's like someone who hasn't called in anything before.
Right. No interviews. Right. No books. Yeah. No mini-series drama. Setting up. But that's kind of where we're at, right? There's more modern stories. The most recent one was in like 2021, maybe 21, I think.
Just a quick side note about that. That's when a lot of people went out to Sandusky. Like I went out to Sandusky for the first time because of COVID, so it kind of became like a nice little vacation spot.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I would expect there to be like maybe more sightings.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, more of the reopening of things, and yeah.
And it's a big boat area, right? It's beautiful because you can go from, we already talked about this, you can go from Sandusky to the islands. It's a quick hop over there. The Put-in Bay, Kelly's Island area is very accessible, and that's where this thing is hanging out, right? So you're going to get a lot of accounts. But the 80s and 90s really ramped up. Right, people really started to take pride in this and started to notice this a lot, and that kind of gets us a little bit of like, the meaning behind Bessie. Yeah. Right, we talked about the stories, we know the firsthand accounts. We talked a little bit about like the early stuff and where this comes from, Europeans and natives who lived in this area. What are we thinking here? Why why Lake Erie? Why Ohio? Aside from the fact that we want it to be ours, but there's Great Lakes all over, right?
Yeah.
Bigger ones, right? Deeper
Yeah.
ones. Lake Erie's shallow. It's not the biggest.
No, and like you said, it's a very storm-prone area. I mean, even just living here for the decade that I have, and yeah, you never can tell what's going to come day to day. In fact, the weather changes so much that don't like the outlook for the next week. It's going to change tomorrow. So, I mean, we've got such weird weather coming off of the lakes. So much water coming up and being dumped right here in Cleveland, or right along the shores there. It's very unusual living along the lakes, and I think that's part of it, is that a lot of the stories may be there to warn people, maybe there to kind of show that fear of like, oh, you don't want to be out on a ship on the lake, especially during a storm, because well, there's going to be all those shipwrecks that are already there in Lake Erie and in Superior and in all of the Great Lakes.
So that's a good point. So because well, there's obviously shipwrecks all over the Great Lakes, but Lake Erie is known for really terrible shipwrecks, and your boat can get capsized pretty quickly. And you think that there's a fear factor, like a warning aspect of Bessie on the lake?
Yes, and I think that stems from a lot of the European cultures that came in here, is that those European cultures, that's what we talked about, was that they have these stories, and that's what their cryptids were all about, were warning people away from things, is saying, oh no, don't go over there, or if it was to go and conquer something. So when they did and nothing happened, most of the time they would just be like, oh, there's nothing over there.
Yeah.
And so you'll hear a lot of those stories too. But a lot of these stories are to warn people, like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that, and this is why.
Yeah.
The big bad boogeyman's going to get you.
Yeah, I like that. That kind of goes to the whole, it's easier to blame a creature for calamity than it is just pure chance.
Yep.
To warn people about the chaos of the lake, right? The terrible stuff that Lake Erie can do, because I'm sure a lot of people would set out and never come back, and no one had any idea what happened to them, and it's like, oh, maybe the creature guy, at least for a while, right? At least until the narrative shifted with this story, and Bessie became more of a, oh great, but that's around the time of radar and radios and stuff like that, and no more of the whole, like, out there by yourself, right? Alone. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's very good.
Well, and I think that, the juxtaposition there with the indigenous cultures, that's why, I'm trying to get more in touch with my roots in that, my indigenous culture, is that the way that they saw the world is so completely different than the way that the Europeans saw the world, is that they see these as spirits, as guardians, as protectors, as, they're going to be coming out, and their sightings mean a storm is on the way. Yeah. So it's kind of along that same warning line, but it's more that, no, that's when you don't go out, is they're coming to tell us, you don't want to be out here because we got some stuff going on over here. So the panthers and the serpents are fighting or something. I don't know. So
Interesting. I like that. That's good stuff. Yeah. I mean, shifting gears a little bit, I really like the what you mentioned about the timing of these stories, right? Mm-hmm. It's war that just kind of like wreaked havoc through this region, and it's when these stories started to kind of come up, and we talked about that a little bit with Grassman, not to keep going back to Grassman, but the story started to emerge during a time of kind of an industrial change for that part of Ohio, and these stories started to emerge more of a time of war. Yep. And tremendous amount of expansion right, through this area as the frontier was being explored and kind of discovered. And people are they're coming in now, right? They're in droves, right? There's the freedom now that they didn't have before because of that war, to kind of start moving into this area, and developing it a little bit more.
Well, and one of the cool things about that is that it is an industrial shift, because that's the starting of the shipping lanes, and starting as I'm sure there's probably shipping lanes that go right along the coast there, stopping at each of the different frontier settlements that are here, that became Cleveland, that became Sandusky, that became Toledo, and like I said, that's what humans do. We like to settle along water. So
yeah.
I think I remember I was really big into Bear Grylls when he did the whole man versus what? I don't even remember the name of his show. But,
yeah.
One of his things is that if you ever find yourself lost out in the wilderness or whatever, that you find a body of water and you travel along that body of water, because you're sure to find humans, because they're always settling along the water.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Do we think this thing is real, or do we think it was just like people scared of change?
Well, that's a good question. So we, I don't know if Miguel and I are here to really question if it's real or not. I like to believe it's real. We're more in line with just kind of telling the story and letting the listener figure out, what's going on. So you can decide for yourself. There's logical explanations, or more logical explanations, for a lot of these sorts of things. And that's what makes Bessie so great, is because despite logical explanations, there's people who still say they see it. And they're still reporting it exactly the way that people have been reporting it since 1793. And those people in 2021, I think I got the date right, they don't know, they probably didn't research what that guy saw in 1793, but they're reporting the same thing.
But going back to the question, is that it's completely the wrong question. I think that because one of the things that I found funny about the Grassman, because I started doing social media, kind of asking questions for people around if they had any stories about sightings and stuff like that. Most people now don't have any idea about the Ohio Grassman. And again, not to go back to that, but it's where I was. And so one of the biggest things that kept coming up was, well, does it exist? And I think that's kind of a misnomer, because what do you mean by existence? Because the stories exist. And as long as the stories exist, then what's to say that the stories don't point to something that does exist?
Yeah, and we're embracing it more, and that gets us to another topic, is that, you mentioned it at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
The Lake Erie Monsters. That's our hockey team in Cleveland, right? Not NHL, but it's our hockey team, and they've got their logo. There's a beer from Great Lakes Brewing Company.
Yep.
So this is kind of now intertwined with the identity of Northeast Ohio, right? And this is Cleveland, and there haven't really been sightings in Cleveland. They're out in Sandusky, but we're taking it too. It's all along that Ohio coastline, and I think it's really great that it's now a symbol of our community. I grew up with this story. My dad used to tell me about, Lake Erie Monster. There's a serpent, or people say there's a serpent in there, and it's interesting. I wanted to ask if you felt like having a myth in this area, does it make this part of our connection to the lake feel more significant because we have this creature that potentially is living in the lake?
Well, and as I said before, is that the myths are shaped by the storytellers, or the stories are shaped by the storytellers. But I think that the stories also shape us as humans, is that they shape how we see the world, how we interact with the world. That's why I think it's so important for us to get those cultural lenses to look at such things, is that we want to look at the way that how this shaped us. Does the Lake Erie Monster make us better in any way? No, it just means that's how we were formed. That's how we were shaped. Of course, yours is different because, I grew up in South Texas. We had a, completely different set of stories. Sure. Ours, our water monster has nothing to do with large bodies of water. She's a river monster, which is Ya Llorona. And, that's a completely different story, which we probably won't even get to in the podcast till like season 2. But
foreshadowing.
Yeah, no, that's it's way out of Ohio. So okay. we wanted to stay local. So right. So yeah, I think that it shapes us. It's not just does the myth bring something to us. It's more that the myth is us. We are shaped by it. It's part of our identity.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's what's so important about the 80s, right? Is that we started to just really take this on now, and turned it away from being this evil thing, right, that we talked about, and made it more of a kind of an honorary mascot of this area. And it's cool that companies are starting to embrace it and have embraced it now for a while. And it says a lot too, I think, about the lake in this area. Bessie is potentially this prehistoric type creature, right? That maybe has existed for a very long time, right? That's some of the stuff that we might talk about, here. The lake has gone through a tremendous amount of transition, and it's still here, right? The story's still here, despite all the pollution and the war and all of the population growth, right? It's still with us, right? It's a symbol of the resilience, but also getting back to, I think, my favorite one is it is kind of a cautionary tale, right? It is a warning. Don't go out there when you're not supposed to go out there. And although the creature, hasn't always shown up when there's been something terrible about to happen, like it's not, warning anyone. It's just kind of a subtle little nudge to just be mindful of the lake, and what it's capable of doing.
Well, instead of like the vertical, or instead of the horizontal visual limitations, such as, trees, and, that's why the forest has its own kind of fears and stories like that. Water is vertical. And you can't see underneath the surface of the water in Lake Erie, especially on most days.
No, you cannot. You can't see anything in Lake Erie. Yes. Even on its clearest days, you're still struggling to see a few feet down. Yeah.
But speaking of which, this is, we've got those speculations. I'm just going to move through these really quickly because, I honestly don't think that that's the right question. But these are the things that it could be. Like, there's a lot of people in growing up the way that I did. I grew up in a very evangelical Christian household. And so my upbringing, they were always trying to tie things into the physical world. So one of the things that I heard about and I learned about in those was that Nessie may just be a plesiosaur that was left over from the dinosaurs, that since the Earth is only 6,000 years old, that the dinosaurs are still around. They're just like in hiding. And so plesiosaur could, is a possibility, held over from, like giant creatures like that. There's a giant sturgeon. I mean, if you've seen a sturgeon before, those things can get huge, and they have those big silver scales too. If you've ever caught one or you ever seen a sturgeon, floating logs. Obviously, remember a war just happened here, so we're going to be having the shipwrecks. We're going to be having the masts and everything. Yeah. These are not going to be like the normal big metal ships. You're thinking more sailboats and schooners and the big I can't remember what they're called, clipper ships. That's what they're called. There's also the optical illusion of the waves on the water that the way that they come up during storms and stuff like that. Maybe that's a serpent.
Sure.
But that it all ties into kind of that media narrative we were talking about before. Was that if this happened today, if you got footage of it today, would it go viral?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Because in 1817, the newspaper was virality. So,
it was a sensation.
These brothers did go viral with their story of seeing this monster on the beach.
Yeah.
And so, why do we want to believe that something is big in the lake? I think that's a more important question. Is what's that desire to have something there?
Yeah. I like believing in it, right? Not just because of the stories, but because it brings the lake back to what it really is, right? It's just a part of this region, this old glacier-formed lake, right? That has been here for such a long time, and is still, a part of our desire to be outdoors and to connect with nature, right? I mean, when you're out on the water, and I'm not a boat guy or anything like that, and I don't even like to fish that much, but I go out on the lake when I can on the bigger ships because I'm afraid of Bessie. But it just is a very peaceful feeling, and to think that there's maybe a protector out there is kind of a nice little thing, to think about when you're out there on the boat, I think.
And you told me that we weren't going to talk about fish.
Oh, I know. Yes. Yeah, no fish. Well, we don't understand fish, I know.
But I like that. The protector there is that. I like to think that maybe it's also because we want to believe that there is still some mystery in the world, that not everything is known,
right,
or knowable. And so, we may never know that if Bessie actually, there is a physical being in the water, or if it's just some weird spiritual thing that lives on a semi-parallel universe that pops in from time to time.
For another podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
And some people are comforted by mystery and others are threatened by it. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. It's definitely transitioned away from the fear, though. I think in this region, and it's not something that we laugh at. It's something that we take pride in. Yeah. The people who know the story, or the people, at least in that region, I think it's like Grassman. It's ours. Don't make fun of us for it. It's not some gimmick. It is what we believe in. It's what we feel here. So, and maybe Bessie began that way, right? It's something to be feared. Maybe a shadow in the water, or this crazy serpent monster that might capsize your boat if you're not looking. But somewhere along the way, she became something else, or this creature became something else. I keep saying she because I associate Bessie with the she. Yeah. Yes. But she's part of the shoreline, right? And she's part of the summers in that part of the state. And now, like we talked about, it's part of our identity. And in Northeast Ohio, we really don't just live by the lake, right? We live with the lake. It influences everything, not just going out there on boats, but the weather, all sorts of things. It's a part of us. And Bessie feels like it's a part of that relationship too. Not a threat, at least anymore, but I don't know if it ever really was a threat. And not even really more of a mystery, right? I think that's maybe why these, legends survived. It's not because anyone was able to prove it, right? She's looking for proof, but because no one wanted to really let it go and keep it. So if you visit Northeast Ohio, right, for our listeners, or Lake Erie, and catch something strange moving beneath the surface, it might just be Bessie. Or maybe it's just the lake reminding us, or you, that it still has a few secrets left.
So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Again, we do have a Facebook page. We are available on most podcast platforms. I think that Apple did approve us eventually after the first week. I had issues, but got those fixed. As you can see, we are on YouTube now. You can see the video. And so hello. Those of you who like to watch people talking, hey, more power to you. We are Neighborly Unknown, and again, Miguel, Ed, and our podcast witness today, Carl. Hopefully, Carl will decide to join us for next month's, where we will be probably sticking close to home. We've got a lot of Ohio stories left to do.
Good ones.
In fact, the one that I'm really kind of chomping at the bit to get to is the Melonhead kids.
Oh, yes.
That one's one that I'm like, I really want to get into that.
That one's close to where I grew up.
Nice.
Yes.
So, join us next month and be our neighbor.
Thank you very much.